Hi, welcome to day 17. Two still hooked together. Today I'm going to do a request video, which is basically how to pull yourself up. I believe the comment said by your hair. The phrase I've always heard, I guess, is by your bootstraps, but that makes no sense nowadays because people don't need to use them. Bootstraps, that is. When you have avoidant personality disorder. This is a very difficult question. I don't know why I keep doing really hard topics this year. I mean, there's been a couple where I talk about the cats. Other than that, they've been like hard puzzles. It's better. So how to do that? Okay, the really easy answer, which is horrible, but also truly easy, is to wait until everything is so horrible that you just can't not. I mean, that is the easy answer. That's the thing that would get you going, for sure. I mean, I as far as that goes, I think it's the most basic and horrible thing that anybody can say, and also totally true. There is a point where you will get that whatever you're going through is so intolerable that you just cannot go through it anymore. And when that happens, suddenly, poof, you'll be able to do so much more than you thought you were capable of, because it will basically become a life or death moment. And I know that sounds dramatic, but that's also completely true. It will get to the point where if you don't make a change, then you're not going to be able to go on. And then again, I know that sounds ridiculous and dramatic, but that is a fact. However, it's not really practical all the time to sit around and wait until you're at that point and at that stage, which I understand. Plus, who really wants to get to that point, to that sort of extreme suffering? I mean, would anybody really want that? So how do you do it without getting to the point where that you're suffering? And that's the real question. And that's the real difficult question. Because, again, I basically wait. And wait and wait and wait. If you've seen what's going on in the channel for a while, then you know. This goes like this. not correct. I think this goes like that. I didn't think things could change with the situation I was living with, taking care of all my family, and even worse than taking, I mean, I say that. The thing is that if you're dealing with people who are basically abusive to you, then anything that you do to interact with them is horrible. But in my case, what was even worse, and maybe I'm deluding myself, let's be real. Maybe I'm deluding myself, but I thought that the people who came along with them, like the doctors, etc., they were even worse to deal with for me. But maybe that's not true. Maybe it really was the people. So here I am, as usual, trying to avoid answering the actual question and going on tangents. How annoying. Yeah, again, the easiest way to do it is to wait until there are no other options and just do it. If you want to be more sane about it and not do something like that, you can manufacture the stress that would then convince you to change what you're doing. That's a possibility. But I assume that's not really what you want to hear either. So what do you do? It's a lot of sort of, how to say this without sounding so hokey. It's basically like soul searching. You've got to do a lot of work to, I mean, I've said this again and again. I think this is like the theme of what I'm saying today, this cycle, this Vlogmas, is really assess what you have going on in your life. And, you know, a lot of the reason why people can't make changes is because they're trying to do absolutely everything at once. And that doesn't work. You're not going to be able to do it all immediately. That doesn't mean you're not going to be able to do it all eventually. But you can't do everything. So what you have to do is try to figure out what exactly is the most important thing that you want. And don't assume at all that you can get there in a straight line. I mean, maybe that's awesome. And maybe it'll come out of the blue that suddenly something you're doing is going to work for you where it didn't work before. Again, that's awesome. And that happens often. I mean, that's what happened with me. I was, you know, nothing's working, everything's terrible, blah, blah, blah. And then suddenly, in the course of just a few months, everything changed. And then I was thrown off because I had plans in place that were not going to be happening because they didn't have to happen. I'm like, okay, well, what do I do then? No idea. That happens. See, now I have the light so bright that I can't really see what I'm doing. So, practically, my practical advice is to wait. That's probably so annoying. I'm sorry for that. Does that go there? This one I can see so little that there's probably going to be a whole bunch that are going to be like, what? Those don't go there at all. But they kind of fit together, so. But anyway, so back to basics. Figure out what exactly the most important thing it is that you need in your life. That you're not going to get it all at once. It's not like, boom, win the lottery, do this, and then everything falls into place. That's not how this world works. You have to be patient, which I know is like the most annoying thing I could say, but it's true. You have to be patient and strategize, and eventually things are going to fall in place. So find out what is actually the most important thing for you, and then break down the steps to get there, and don't try to go linearly. So like, for example, now I've got to come up with an example. Okay, well, let's say that you want to get, you want to have a successful job. All right. So what kind of successful are you talking about? Is there like one specific type of job that you think you can do? Because chances are, first of all, if it's anything to do with anything socially, it's actually going to be harder than you think to do. And secondly, it might not be a good fit just because you're like, okay, this is bizarre, this isn't, but seriously, when I went to college the first time, I was studying astrophysics and molecular genetics. And I discovered that when you go in and you start studying this stuff, it's so boring to start. You're basically repeating experiments that everybody else has already done, because you're practicing to see, basically work your way through doing it on your own, and learn the process and learn how to do it and everything else. And it's so boring, and I was so creative, and I couldn't tolerate it, and I was so sure I was going to do that. I was absolutely adamant that I was going to study English, because as far as I was concerned, there was only two things you could do if you studied English. I mean, the idea that you could actually become a writer, give me a break, I thought I was going to only have to be like an English teacher in high school, and I could not find, the idea of that was so intolerable. Guess what? I actually really like working with teenagers. But when you're planning your future, you just go with what you assume you know. Or to be a lawyer. Okay, well, I'm definitely not ever going to be a lawyer. But those other two things, not that bad. Believe it or not. People are like, oh my goodness. Now, middle school, oh, that's a different matter. But high school, when kids are starting to get a little bit of autonomy, still following the rules, but you can really spark them into starting to make decisions on their own. They're cool. Everybody thought I was going to be an English major. I was not going to do that, because I could not imagine a future that would, be even slightly tolerable to me. Guess what? I have 2 English degrees. Well, I have a degree in a bachelor in English Lit, and then a master in creative writing. Hello. I never, ever, ever, ever thought I would have kids. I didn't want kids. I thought they would be such a burden. The biggest moment of pure joy in my life was when I got the positive pregnancy test. And it came out of the blue because, again, this is super personal, but I didn't think that I was actually pregnant. I thought that, you know, I was basically just late and I was wishful thinking, and I was like, okay, let me take this test so I know that, you know, that's not what's happening, so I can just start the cycle and get it over with, because it's, come on now. Did not think I was pregnant. Never in 100 years would anybody, I mean, of me, of all people, the biggest, most surprising shock for anybody who ever knew me before I had my son was, oh my God, her? She, what? She never, I mean, it's so, I mean, it was such a shock that I would, like, find myself in a position where I could become pregnant. Let's be real. I mean, everybody knew that I was, they didn't know the diagnosis, but they knew I was pretty alone, let's call it that. Anyway, the point is that you shouldn't really focus on the end point as a person. Well, as in general, but it definitely as a person with avoidant personality disorder. Don't focus on, I want this specific goal. Because you know what? Let's say you get 90% of the way there and things are spectacular. But guess what? If you have this one end goal, you're going to be disappointed. So don't think in terms of that. Like, I want this one specific thing, but rather, what is the biggest thing that you need to change in your life? What is, you know, and it's not even, like, again, don't look at outside pressure of other people and this is what you're supposed to do and all this stuff. What do you want and need in your life? And don't just go, because I made a whole video out of it, don't just go, I want a job. Really? Is that really what you want? Or is it that you want a income? They're different. You know, I mean, if you just want a job and you just, then especially if you're just starting, I suggest volunteering first. Even though you don't get paid, just because it's so much lower pressure. You know, if the idea of volunteering versus getting a job is just completely outrageous to you, then it's not a job that you want, it's income. And there are many ways to get income that do not involve getting a job, okay? If you want a family or something like that, you know, don't think in terms of this is where you want to end up. You know what? I mean, I'm sorry, this might offend people. How do you know that you're not like gay or on the spectrum? How do you know for sure what you're going to end up with? People go on, I mean, probably not avoidant people, but people go on dating apps and they're like, it's like they're shopping for, you know, a box of cookies or something, where this is what I think I want somebody to look like this and blah, blah, blah. You don't know what that person is really like. You don't know what the person, I mean, you might fall for somebody that's 30 years older than you. And there goes the idea of having children. You might fall for somebody that already has 3 kids and you're not going to have it. You know, you got to start right off the bat being a parent. This is a fact. So whatever that idea is in your head, don't go about searching for that ideal. Don't go about searching definitely for somebody else's, like, well, this is what you should do with your life. You don't know. Who knows? You could end up living in another country. It happens. You know, there's so many things that could happen. So don't get pinned down with either your own or somebody else's idea of what it should be at the end. You're wanting to do little teeny steps in the beginning and look at, like, not this is the picture of what I want in the end, but this is the type of thing that I want. Like, for instance, I said about the job, like, okay, so if you want you know, to have I don't know, like you got this idea in your head that you would like have a big giant family. You know what? Little kids are a pain in the butt. I gotta say, little teeny kids, people don't talk about babies, how exhausting they are. You know, maybe that's not really what you want. Maybe what you want is for somebody to, you know, to feel like you're connected. You know what? I have 2 cats that I take care of. You know, I had the kid. I absolutely loved having a kid. I probably would have had like 6 or 8 kids if I'd had the opportunity once I got started. Um, did not have the opportunity because I have avoidant personality disorder. Um, you know, so I have a cat to take care of and to feel connected with. You know, and if you need a higher level of that, you could get a dog that needs you 24/7. You know what I mean? You don't need a kid for that. So break down what it is you want to get out of this idea of where you want to go, and then break it down even smaller. If you there, because again, there's 2 things that you can do. You can either have your life just blow up and you have to make a change, because if you don't, you're going to die. And I don't mean that in a small sense. I don't mean that to make fun. I mean that literally. Like, you will get to the point where you make a giant move and blow up your life, or you die, period. If that's the case, what's Augustine Burroughs wrote a book, I think it's called How to Live, and it was fantastic. And that's the entire book was, okay, when you get to that point, do this, do this, do this before you actually do something totally permanent. And it's fantastic because it's exactly what it is. He's giving you all these ideas of things to do in the meantime before you get sorted, because the other point of it is, again, maybe you're looking in the wrong direction, and if you turn around and there's something else, that might be the thing that's actually a better fit for you. So don't get totally focused on this endpoint. You know, and if you're going to not wait, which, you know, bravo to you, then break it down into the tiniest sort of, you know, the tiniest little things so that you can know what you're really looking for. Because you know what, if you're looking for an income, there are ways to get an income without having a traditional job. And most people with avoidant personality disorder actually do better with a non-traditional job. If you're looking for a romance, then you basically start with, you know, acquaintances, speak to them, and then be friendly with people, be kind with people. When you start getting people who react positively to you, you've sort of cracked it as far as how to interact with people in order to get a positive reaction. At that point, you can start looking at dating. You know, but don't go into a date if you're like already like super awkward and shut down and you can't interact with people at all. That's why I'm like, talk to your grocery clerks. You know, just smile at them, be friendly, say thank you, and see what works, how they react to you. Because each individual person, I mean, if you have a script that you heard somebody say that was great, you know, that might not work for you. It might come off as awkward and stilted. Find what works for you. You know, pay attention to when you interact with people, what it is. I mean, for me, if things start feeling awkward, I mean, this is going to sound so stupid, and coming from me, it's ridiculous, but I totally fall back on sort of like pointing out how goofy and awkward I'm being. And for some people, a lot of people, most people think that's kind of charming, that I'm willing to point out that I'm being kind of lame. That works for me. That won't work for everybody. plus I've gotten used to it. It doesn't bother me anymore. It takes the sting out of being awkward for me. For somebody else, pointing it out and making it like in the forefront would probably cause a major tailspin. So you can't just say, do this. I wish I could tell you to do this, but you need to practice, and you need to take it in tiny little steps. Learn what works in the most basic situation, and then go from there, and step it up by teeny tiny little increments, and go like for instance, I keep saying that, sorry. If you're gonna fly around the world, you get in a plane, guess what? You don't take a straight line. And this is weird, and it's like, how does this work? And this is physics, this is the truth. Like, okay, so here's the globe. So here is, New York, and here's Paris. You don't fly like that, because you go way up over. Instead, you actually go over here, like over Greenland, and then down to Paris. And it's like, what? But because you're not going up so high, but you're going around like this, it actually takes less time, less distance, less energy. It's wild. It's like, huh? It doesn't make sense when you think about it like that, but the world is circular. It's not a flat space. And the same with interacting with people. It's not a linear thing where you go from A to B. If you try to go from A to B, it's probably going to be the most difficult way to do it. Instead, you go around and round and round and double back, and suddenly you're there. Faster and with less effort than if you try to go directly toward this thing. Plus, again, maybe you get halfway around that and you find just what you needed, and it's nothing like what you expected and not what the original idea was that you had in your head. So if you can get rid of like this fantasy idea and just stop that, because it'll just make you, nobody ever gets 100% of whatever their ideal thought, fantasy is about anything. It could be so much better. It could be so much better than what you thought you could even imagine. So if you're caught up on what you're imagining, you're not going to see what's better halfway around. So that's my advice. It's really annoying. It's all jumbled up and all over the place. I can't say just do A, B, and C, because everybody's different, and that's probably super annoying, but that's really, truly, that's it. That's how you do it. It takes a long time. Even if you blow up your life, it's still, because then you've got to deal with being in shock and resettling, and it'll still take a long time. I did it when I moved to Philadelphia, and I was going to go to graduate school, and I basically spent the first 6 weeks just laying in bed and not even moving so it's a good thing I left early. It was not the plan, but it turned out to be a good thing. I left early because I had to get my car inspected, and it would have cost like all this money, and you can't even have a car in Philadelphia, so I left 2 months early. Thank God, because I literally did not move because it was such a shock to my system to go to a new place. It still took a long, 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 long time. And yet, within a year in Philadelphia, I had made more progress than I had like the previous 4 or 5 years at home. So it did do the trick of blowing up my life and making changes and being able to get some of the things that I wanted. But it was so painful to do it like that. So yeah, anyway. Sorry, it's not good advice. But it's real. That's how you do it. And so I'll stop this finally and shut up. And I'll talk to you tomorrow. Bye.